Welcome back. I'm Regina Montgomery. Family-run businesses are amongst the most entrepreneurial and creative in Canada, and we've been talking about the sacrifices and the determination of some of these family-run businesses and some of the things that they've had to endure to succeed into the next generations. Joining me now are two guests who know all about longevity. One of them is a third-generation business and the other one a second-generation business, and I would like to welcome Barbara Fairbarin. Sorry, I just totally messed up your name, I apologize, who's the owner of Jeffers Pharmacy, which has been around for 100 years, and Teresa Pope, who is the manager of Horizons Event Center, and her father is Carl Edelbrock, who everybody knows in this community is one of the pioneers of our community. So let's talk a little bit about that. And when I was doing some of the research, it said that third-generation businesses don't really succeed here in Canada, but that's obviously not true because you're the third generation. So talk a little bit about 100 years of business success.
Yes, I guess it's fairly rare. I don't know of any other third generations in Orangeville, at least, that have been around for 100 years. Started by my grandfather, of course, in 1912, and he started the business on Broadway.
Right.
And we were in that location for 88 years.
Oh, wow.
And my father joined him after he was in the Second World War and then went to pharmacy school. He came back. Actually, he worked in Guelph and Waterloo first and then came back and worked with his father. And that would have been in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
He came back to Orangeville to raise his family. And he had actually met my mother in the drugstore as well.
Oh, wow.
My mother was trained as a bookkeeper,
oh, yeah.
and she went to work for my grandfather doing the books, and so that's how she met my father. So it was really all in the family.
So if the walls could talk. Now, Teresa, similar story. I mean, your second generation, your father, started the business, and I do know you went off and sort of did your own thing for a little while and came back. So what was the draw to come back? Why are you in the family business?
Well, you go in your own mind through what you want out of life. What's important in life. Yes, I did go on my own. I worked in public accounting for approximately 5 years, but then it came the opportunity where I was actually working public accounting within the Plaza,
right,
which is another business that we work together with as a family. And so what we ended up doing was I just sat back and looked and thought to myself, well, I should actually take this on. My father's getting on in age, so I made the decision that it would be something that I would like to move forward with and keep in the family as opposed to having an outsider come in and run. So, and actually it's been wonderful.
And your father's still active in the business.
He is. He is. He's out there. He's there every day. He sometimes works harder than I do, which is quite amazing for an 84-year-old man. So I'm very blessed to be able to work with him.
Now talk a little bit about some of the challenges. You can both speak to that. The challenges of coming into, and I mean, especially in both your cases where somebody has already sort of set it up and now you're stepping into those shoes and they sort of have that vision of how it should be and being the next generations, and as they come in, they have newer visions. And were there any challenges like when you took it over from your father, and I mean your father's still there, so there's still that, but did you sort of say, I want to do it this way, and was there that resistance, and how does that work?
There wasn't really any resistance in my case. My father and I were very much alike, and we had similar working styles,
okay,
and we worked very well together. I think maybe I brought some new ideas into the business, and it makes me think of computerization because that was just beginning in the early 80s when I joined him. So we were the first pharmacy in Orangeville that actually had computers to help us in the pharmacy.
And that's hard to grasp.
It is, that we actually use typewriters.
Exactly, especially this younger generation, they're all growing up on computers, and I'm sure when they're sitting here one day and talking about social media, it'll be so far advanced from what we have now.
Exactly.
The technology, it can be a challenge, and what about from your side?
No, you know what? It was a very easy transition. My father and I, similar. We get along very well. We share a lot of the same visions for what we see for the future of our business. So it wasn't really, it's not really a challenge to work with him on a daily basis. And similarly, we transitioned into computers as soon as I came on board, because up until then, even only 7 years ago, my father still ran a manual ledger. So I very quickly converted him of that, but he's fine with it. So it works out really well.
Now, in both your cases, when you were younger, did your parents, your family, your fathers, did they bring you to the business on a regular basis? So did you sort of grow up in it, so it might have been an easier choice? Like, is this something that you've just been part of your culture?
It was part of our life. Yeah, my sister and I both worked in the pharmacy as teenagers. That would be our summer job.
Right.
So, yeah, we grew up there, but there was never any pressure to come and work thereafter, or to go to pharmacy school. I could have done whatever I wanted. It just happened that that was what I found that I wanted to do.
No, the same here. There was no pressure. We also had other businesses while I was growing up. My mother owned a clothing store, so I would always be there helping her as well. Sometimes I'd have a small job with her, helping her price clothing, but it was never pressure. If we wanted to come and help, got a little bit of spending money. It worked out great. But no, especially with the Mona Plaza itself, we were there quite often, especially in the summertime. We would bring our bicycles and ride our bicycles there, and we were there quite often. So, but again, no pressure at all.
Speaking of Mona Plaza, I mean, I'm just thinking in my head as you said that word, I'm thinking of a huge challenge would have been, what, 1985? Was it 1985?
It was 1985, May 31st.
Oh my goodness. So where were you in your life at that point? Were you in school? Or
I was in school. I was in grade 7. And of course, I'll never forget that day. And for the viewers, I don't know if they know the date, but that was the big tornado that went through Grand Valley, Barrie, and also hit the Mona Plaza. I was home from school, and it was a large storm, as everyone probably remembers, large hail. And when it was all over, we received a phone call from someone, and to this day I do not know who that person was. And they said, the plaza is gone. My sister and I hopped on our bikes. We rode to my mother's clothing store, where we hopped in her car, and we went to the plaza and saw the destruction that had happened. It was quite a devastating day, but from there we rebuilt, and it is what it is today.
And you wonder sometimes, like, what was going through your father's mind? Did he just, like, obviously it was a passion to continue, because I think sometimes in those type of circumstances, sometimes people just, maybe it's too devastating and they walk away from it, but he must have had that passion to continue. Because,
he did, yeah. But he had a vision in his head of making it into an indoor mall, which it never was before. Before that, it was a flea market, a strip plaza, with a few other small warehousing type outfits in the back, and of course we always had a lumber yard. So a blessing in disguise, if you want to put it that way. He was able then to create his vision, which was an indoor mall. So, and
then with your business being 100 years, I mean, 100 years, there's a lot of history there. There's wars, there's depressions, there's recessions. So, like, how do you come through that? How does that work?
You have to be resilient. You have to keep reinventing yourself, changing with the times. There's going to be lean times, and then there's going to be better times. But, if you're part of the community and you have the community support, you come through it.
And that's what it is. Like, I mean, aside from family-run businesses, you have each other to support, and from what I understand too, there's just that goal of continuing, because it is a family business. But community support, I guess, is huge.
Yes, for sure.
And what about, the next generations now? Or is there generations, like, I know you don't have children, but your sister has kids. Is there plans to, like, will there be a third generation? Will there be a fourth generation? How does that work? What's going to happen?
I don't know at this point. I have 2 children. My son does have some interest in the business. He has taken business. My daughter's still in university, so they haven't decided on their final careers, and I would never ever put any pressure on them either.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from my perspective, yes, I don't have children, but my sister has 2 boys, but they're both very young. So it'll totally be up to them as to whether they want to continue or whether we sell, or we have no idea at this point.
So when you think about that, though, does it scare you? Does it make you sad, or are you okay with it? Because I would think after all those years, I mean, it's different if it's a 5-year run business, but I mean, that's a lot of history between the two of you. Do you worry about that, or you're okay with it if that's the choice?
I'm okay with it if that's the choice. I think that, you know, we've done well. We've had a legacy for 100 years, and that's pretty special in and of itself, without you know, having a fourth generation or beyond.
Yeah, the same thing. So if the children don't want to do it, there's no sense in forcing their hand, because it just wouldn't work out anyway. So, but no, it would be a little bit sad, I think, for a short time.
Yeah.
But then after that, I think it would be fine.
Now, what about advice that you would give? We have a little bit of time left here, but what about advice that you would give to other family-run businesses, maybe in the first generation? We've met some here today. What would you say to them, you know?
Well, I would suggest that it be what they want, not to go into it because anybody is twisting their arm. They have to be able to work together, have a similar vision, I think, because if they're going to want to go in different directions, it's probably not going to work out, but you can have a great time working with family. It can be wonderful.
I agree completely with that, but there's also something that needs to be considered, is the whole dynamic of when you're at work, it's work.
Right.
When you're at home, it's not work. So we've really set ground rules within our family that when we're together as a family for family occasions, we don't talk about work. And vice versa. We try not to talk about personal items when we're at work. So if you can separate the two, I think it would work out very well for the newcomers that are trying their hand at this.
Well, thank you both very much. Very interesting. A lot of legacy, a lot of history. I think that's amazing. And it's great success stories like that that encourage some of our younger generations to continue, because when you see the things you've both been through and you still are out there and it's 100 years and 60-something years later, there's hope. And it just proves that dynamic with family. So thank you both for sharing that with us today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take another short break here on the Chamber Matters, and when we return, we're going to talk fuel. So don't go away. And then we just smile.